the hour, and the hour is about to come. Dr. Dotun Oladele, like I said before, worked in the field, and from the field, he's now back to the classroom as a researcher. He is one of the people that had worked in the field for many years as a DVM holder. He worked in animal care lab at Ogere before taking on a job in Jos University Teaching Hospital in fish medicine and poultry medicine in clinics. So he has been on it, and I'm warning him and I'm telling him that we need him to be a professor soon, which that is all we're looking for from him, because he has done a lot of work actually on clinical cases of this field man. I'm not surprised they've not started calling him in Jos, maybe because of our conference. And then let me use this opportunity to plead with our colleagues to attend the conference in Jos, because that's where we re-engineer ourselves and re-strategize ourselves against future obstacles. And Dr. You are not a stranger to this platform. Please let us have all you want to give us of Marek's disease, the missing link. And then I'll introduce you to Professor Baraya, and you can share areas of research together on areas of neoplastic avian medicine, poultry medicine. So
yes.
What we're itching for by establishing this platform is to break walls. And I think we're breaking the walls. So Dele, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Hello?
Yeah, well, with you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This morning, by the grace of God, I will be sharing with us some very important experiences and facts from both textbook and the field. As my guy said, Dr. Ibe, I am somebody who is involved in a lot of field work. And I found out that if you really want to do well, even in the academia, you must continue in the field work, be involved in handling cases, and have an open mind. Because, like somebody said, he said, disease no dey follow textbook or something like that. And I think I understand what that fellow is trying to say. In the sense that there are a lot of dynamics when it comes to disease management, a lot of things that happen when it comes to disease management. So this morning, I'll be speaking on what I call management of Marek's disease outbreaks, the missing link. Now, in my outline, we'll be taking a look at the introduction, and then what is Marek's disease, the mode of transmission and pathogenesis, gross lesions, diagnosis, and then we'll look at some facts about Marek's disease vaccine and vaccinations.
Okay.
Then we look at factors responsible for outbreaks, maybe just a few, and then managing outbreaks. There are various, from my experience, there are various things involved in this when it comes to managing. The way I manage a particular case could be different from the way I will manage another, and I will explain as I move on. Then we'll look at a few cases that I had handled in the Southwest. Then we'll look at as part of the cases, there is a particular one we published, which we'll also take a closer look at to have an understanding of what I usually do, in handling such cases. Then we'll take a look at the data on passive surveillance on Marek's disease in the last 1 year at the VTH at UniJos. And then I will just conclude just verbally because I was rushing to prepare this PowerPoint. And like I told Dr. Ibe, I was having network issues, but thank God I was able to resolve the issue. So these are some of the things we'll be looking at in the course of this presentation. Now, many years ago, at least as far as I know, the detection or diagnosis of the condition referred to as Marek's disease was like a death sentence to the business and by extension, the farmer. The moment some people hear Marek's, their faces will change suddenly once you diagnose that problem. Now, this often resulted in court cases and demands for compensations because the assumption is always that, yes, this problem is coming from the hatchery. They did not do their job as they ought to have done and all that. So people would always take up these issues and go to court. Now, we were told that the economic losses due to Marek's disease alone in the US was estimated to be about $169 million and about $943 million worldwide. In Nigeria, it is quite difficult to quantify the losses because some farmers suffer in silence and do not even know if they have such problems on their farms. That is what is quite disturbing here. I think in our country, one of the major areas we seem to have issues is on having data on some of this kind of condition. Now, opinions differ across the world on what to do when an outbreak occurs. What we have read in textbook and what we have been taught over and over and over again over the years is that once you encounter a case where you have this kind of neoplastic disease called Marek's, just ensure that you get all those birds slaughtered or you sell them off or just get rid of them. That is what we were taught. And when you consider the huge investment made by farmers and the colossal financial losses associated with the outbreaks, questions should be asked on how the situation can be salvaged to minimize losses to the barest minimum. This is so important because over the years, my encounter with some farmers has really made me to start thinking in a different way from the way we do things generally. Now, what is Marek's disease? It's principally a viral disease of chickens, though in 1996, it was reported to have occurred in turkeys in France. And Marek's disease was named after the Hungarian scientist, Joseph Marek, who first described the lesions in 1907. A minute, please. Yes.
Tell this your farmers, they should leave you alone for this time. Dotun is a very busy person. They always call him to.
Sorry about the slight interruption.
Yeah.
It was somebody who just came around. Now, the Marek's disease occurs in a classical form, which is usually referred to as fowl paralysis. It produces nerve lesions and could occur with high level of visceral tumors, in which case you refer this to as the acute Marek disease, or we call it chicken cancer. Or you may also have the cutaneous or the skin form, which is very common in broilers. It's caused by a DNA virus, DNA herpes virus, referred to as Gallid herpes virus 2. And another virus that is similar to it is the herpes virus of turkey, which is the serotype 3, which has been isolated from apparently healthy turkeys and is used for the production of vaccine against Marek's disease. The Marek's vaccine was introduced in 1970. And the scientists, hello?
Continue.
Okay, and the scientists credited with the development is Dr. Ben Roy Baumeister. Now, the birds may get infected at any age, and they are usually most susceptible in the 4th week of age, especially if they are from parent stocks that had been vaccinated. The disease appears in the clinical form at about 6 weeks to 10 weeks of age, in acute form of Marek's disease, and between 12 to 20 weeks of age in the classical form of Marek's disease. Most cases occur from about 12 weeks of age, though we are seen in younger age too. Now, what happens? The virus usually matures and reaches full infectious stage in the skin epithelium and is shed along with the dander and feathers into the environment. It's one of the reasons why when you want to carry out the diagnosis, you can take samples, from a portion of the feathers that you pluck, apart from the internal organs. Maturation in the skin starts about 2 weeks after infection. This Marek's virus survives in the poultry house. This is very important for us to note as veterinarians, especially for biosecurity reasons. At least if the place is shaded for about 4 to 8 months, the virus will still remain intact. And the airborne dust particles retain infectivity for longer periods, possibly because they contain the least moisture. It's known to survive for 4 months in droppings and litter, and up to 1 year in the feathers. That is why if there's an outbreak on a farm and you are cleaning up the place, the presence of residual feathers simply means that your work done is zero. If those feathers are not cleared and burnt off, it will still become a big problem, because I've seen where birds were brought from somewhere, kept in a place where there had been a previous outbreak, and they came down within a few weeks with the same Mareks. Now, the most common mode of infection actually is by inhalation of the infective particles. So once the infection enters into a susceptible, unvaccinated flock, all the birds may show Marek's disease viremia by about 8 weeks post-infection. This is one of the things we need to know. And some of the clinical signs you observe actually vary. One, depending on the virus strain and the virulence, because you could have the very virulent Marek's disease virus, the dosage, the route of infection, as well as the age, the genetic strain, and the sex of the host. The classical form usually initially could have low mortality with involvement of nerves. Normally, when we carry out postmortem examination, what we do to help us in narrowing down diagnosis is when we check like the sciatic nerves, we need to use a small magnifying lens. And by the time you view through the magnifying lens, you will see that loss of striation, which is quite common in cases like this. And once the paralysis occurs, whether on the legs, on the wings, a characteristic posture in which one of the legs is straight forward and the other backward will be seen. I remember those days they used to call it teachers used to call it the hurdle jumper's posture. The affected nerves are usually thickened and they lack the striation, like I had mentioned earlier, and the cause of the disease is often prolonged. Death results from starvation and dehydration because of inability of birds to reach the site of food and water. That is one of the major challenges. As you can see from this picture, you see that this bird is paralyzed as if it's trying to jump a hurdle. So this is the typical appearance of birds that are having this kind of disease. Now, in the acute form, outbreaks can be explosive in nature with sudden onset, and mortality can be between 30 to 60% over a long period. And this one, most often you will see tumors on organs like the ovary, testes, kidney, liver, spleen, lungs, and proventriculums. Also, you have ocular lesions too. Now, one thing from my little experience, the moment I open up the birds and I begin to check the organs, if I notice tumor in the proventriculus, it is almost always a case. I can at least say I can be sure that it's at least 50% sure that it's a case of Marek's disease, going by what we often see. And like what you are seeing in this picture, we can see some palpable grayish-white nodules on the liver of commercial layer. On the heart, right on the myocardium, you can see some lymphomas forming already. As you can see also, on the portion of the liver, the heart, the spleen, the neoplastic changes have occurred. What I was saying about the proventricular tumor, within the musculature of the proventriculus, you will usually find this kind of tumor. And from my little experience, oftentimes you will also notice some ulcers with it and petechial hemorrhages. Now, those ulcers might be one of the reasons why those birds tend to go off feed, because just as in humans, if somebody is having gastric ulcer and the person will tell you that, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And it's one of those things that will make them to also further lose weight, apart from the tumor spreading within the other organs. So as you can see from here, you will notice the ulcers on the proventricular mucosa. Tumors can also be seen on the ovaries. Usually, this kind of tumors, they will have this meaty consistency. By the time you cut it with scissors, it will just look as if you are cutting a piece of meat, which is not supposed to be. A normal ovarian follicle, just a little touch, it will just burst open like that. But this one, you will cut it and you'll be feeling it as if you are cutting meat, which is one of those major things we do see. Now, the diagnosis basically is based on clinical signs, gross and microscopic lesions, and you may tentatively also assume that, well, could it be lympholeucosis? From my little experience, let me quickly say this. In lympholeucosis, especially which occurs more in older birds, one of the key lesions we usually observe is a kind of beaded mesentery. The moment I see a beaded mesentery, I can assure you is at least over 90% that you have problem on leukosis. Because back then, I remember, once we see it, we take samples and we run the RT-PCR and it comes out positive, always, particularly once you notice that beaded mesentery and then accumulation of fluid, apart from the very lean musculature and all that, in the birds. Now, diagnosis, particularly for Marek's disease, usually could be through virus isolation, serological tests, like if you use the agar gel precipitation test. Then it's also important to say that, though not commonly done here, there are some ELISA kits that can capture antigen. So with ELISA, one could also be able to detect then immunochemistry and then PCR, polymerase chain reaction, could help. Now, in controlling, even though the major aspect is to have a very good biosecurity, first and foremost, to prevent the disease, especially when on a farm, you decide that you want to ensure that there is all-in, all-out system, vaccination being done at the artery, use of disinfectants and all that. With all this, we find out that Marek disease continues to exert its strong and negative influence in the poultry industry. The cause of disagreement on how to reduce or minimize the negative effect of Marek disease on our poultry farms is revaccination, and more importantly, revaccinating laying birds in the midst of confirmed outbreak. This may sound absurd to a lot of people. So let's quickly look at what some people say on Marek's disease vaccine and vaccination. Spencer and his colleagues many years ago were able to show that vaccination against Marek's disease at 23 days of age provided better protection than vaccination at just day 2 of age. This was their observation. Then, the maternal antibodies of the Marek disease virus in chicks have been shown to significantly inhibit establishment of cell-free FC126 strain of the HVT, that is the herpes virus of Turkey, which is actually a vaccine, the HVT Marek vaccine. We are saying, these researchers are saying that the maternally derived antibodies of MDV in chicks inhibits establishment of this cell-free vaccine virus by process of neutralization when administered early in chicks. This tells us that early administration of the vaccine, especially, I do hear some farmers, they say, I got it from such and such hatchery. And they said, I can give the Mareks the second day or the third day. Repeating it at that point in time may not really make any difference. If they have a significant level of maternally derived antibody, you will further deplete that level, and then the level of the vaccine virus itself will also be reduced because of the neutralization. So this will further expose the chicks. That's just the implication of this. Now, Some people were able to compare the level of infection by the RBIB strain in chicks, which were vaccinated, and which were unvaccinated, and those that were vaccinated once, and those that were revaccinated at day 1 and day 7, before they were challenged with the virus on day 25. These were their findings. The revaccinated chicks gave a moderately higher level of inhibition of replication of the oncogenic MDV. That is the RBIB strain. So because the birds were revaccinated, there was some level of resistance against the formation of the cancer, according to this research, than those that received single vaccination, as shown by the detection of the antigen of the oncogenic Marek's disease virus on the peripheral blood lymphocytes. Now, comparison of level of infection, sorry. Hello?
Yeah, continue.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yes.
We are here.
Yes, it's hanging. Let me just quickly make some adjustments.
We are seeing you well. No problem.
Yes, I know. The PowerPoint is having a slight issue.
Okay.
Let me just quickly work on that.
Yeah, once you want to start again.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm on. So what we are saying is that the birds, chicks that were challenged with the virus, we had about 3 groups from this research: those that were unvaccinated, those that received single vaccination, and those that received 2 vaccinations. Now, a higher level of replication of the oncogenic Marek disease virus was observed in the peripheral blood lymphocytes of the unvaccinated control. So the virus, which could bring about neoplastic changes, was seen more in the unvaccinated control. They were spreading more. That was what these people observed, compared with what they had seen, that those that were revaccinated gave a moderately higher level of inhibition, So revaccination, according to these people's finding, actually helps in reducing the level of oncogenesis or infection by this oncogenic virus. Now, there was this statement I came across in one of the OIE manuals several years ago, which is now WA. They said vaccination greatly reduces clinical Marek's disease. To me, this statement is loaded. Now, it could mean that in terms of prevention, or where you have a clinical Marek's disease and you are trying to intervene, the level of clinical Marek's disease could reduce. That is the way I see this statement. But people might see it as something else. And then Yoland mentioned this. He said, in conditions of severe challenge, the wet or cell-associated vaccines are more effective than the dry or the cell-free Marek's vaccine. That was his observation anyway. Now, also, some researchers in 2000 said that by 2 weeks after vaccination, specific immunity to Marek's disease developed. Let me quickly make a statement about this. From my own little experience, by the grace of God, since 2006, I found out that usually from about 2.5 to 3 weeks after revaccinating in the midst of outbreak, the level of mortality usually drops significantly. And then the level of neoplastic changes also drops significantly. For example, if they used to have like 10 mortalities on the average per day, it will reduce to about 2 or 3. And amongst those 10, if you are opening those 10, you'll be seeing like 8 to 9 having a lot of tumors all over. But by the time you now get a lower level of mortality after about 3 weeks post-vaccination, you will now begin to notice that out of the 3, maybe just 1 has what we usually call arrested tumor. That means the process of neoplastic changes was somewhat arrested and it did not develop full-blown. This has been my little observation. Now, not just myself alone, but I have a friend who also noticed the same thing. He's a veterinarian. for a very big farm where they have parent stock, grandparent stock. And when they had severe outbreaks, and I suggested this to them, they vehemently opposed what I was saying, because according to what they were saying, this is not what they were taught in school. But after a while, when they considered the losses that were being incurred, they now agreed. And it was much later when we met sometime in Senegal for a meeting. It was the one reminding me that, Dr. Dotun, can you remember what you told us to do that time? That thing really helped our parent stock, broiler parent stock, and they did very well. Those were his words. Now, there are serotypes of serotype 2 MDV and the serotype 1 vaccine that spread horizontally. This was a statement made by Karnek, who is the father of researchers when it comes to Marek's disease. 2 weeks after vaccination, but not so for the HVT. Now, these were their own observations. And according to some of the research by Karnek and others, there are 4 phases in the process of tumor formation, especially when the Marek's disease gets into the tissues of the birds. The first stage is the early replication of the virus between the 3rd and 7th day post-infection. The second stage is onset of latency, between the 6th to the 8th day post-infection. Then you now have a secondary replication where you will see the virus again within the tissues. And then you have the last stage, which is the transformation, where neoplastic changes begin to occur. According to Karnek, in birds that receive a virulent MDV or HVT vaccine, only replication and latency occur. So that means if you are vaccinating with the HVT, for instance, you won't have this problem of stage 3 and 4, which will bring about tumor formation. So that is the difference between the virus, field virus, and the vaccine, attenuated vaccine virus. Now, let us see what some other people said. David Sainsbury said, a good procedure to give protection is to use the so-called response at day old, followed by turkey herpes vaccine at 2 to 3 weeks of age. That was his own observation. Then vaccine manufacturers, when I went through a pharmacopoeia, this is what they were saying. Micropharm, which produced the Delvax-TM, which is the AVT cell-associated, and AVT freeze-dried Marek's disease vaccine. These people said that at day old, you can vaccinate with our vaccine, and then by the 3rd week, you can repeat it by intramuscular route. I want to assume that they have looked at the challenges of giving subcutaneously, because at times when you are doing subcutaneous administration, you might miss the target. The vaccine will just drop out and you think you are vaccinated. It's one of the reasons why we have these issues from the stage of vaccination at the hatchery. Now, another vaccine manufacturer, Ventry Vaccines, they suggested revaccination after the day old. They said, especially in high-risk areas, by administration of booster dose of Marek's disease vaccine to chicks between day 15 and 18 of age by subcutaneous route. Then some other manufacturer, Bao, said you can also repeat their own, apart from day old, you can repeat at 3 weeks of age by subcutaneous or intramuscular routes. It's been reported that Marek's can also occur at 60 weeks of age. That's to tell you there's something called late Marek's. And this happened in birds that have been vaccinated earlier. In my own opinion, I feel there's a need for us to then do away with the assumption that Marek's disease will on its own fizzle out as affected young layers get older. This does not really happen from my own little experience. And our understanding and rationale behind vaccinal intervention in the midst of outbreak is based on the following. 1, Marek's disease is naturally a slow-spreading viral infection, unlike Gumboro disease. The approach to Marek's disease management is strongly based on the fact that it doesn't wipe birds out under 3 to 4 days like Umburu. So you can still intervene so that the birds that are yet to come down with the infection would eventually get protected, at least maybe 70 to 80% of the flock, so that they will not begin to have the problem of neoplastic changes coming up. Now, secondly, the vaccine virus induces cell-mediated immunity via the cytotoxic T lymphocytes that are activated after contact with processed and presented vaccine antigen from antigen-presenting cells like macrophages. The helper T lymphocytes also secrete interferon gamma, which has antiviral properties, and tumor necrosis factor alpha. So these are some of the reasons why it's advisable to revaccinate. But before I start going more into some other quizzes, let me start by mentioning the very first time I decided to revaccinate in the midst of an outbreak. Somebody got about 10,000 birds, and they were black layers. They were about 19 weeks old as at then. He got them from a very popular hatchery. And after opening up the carcasses, and I observed the gross lesions, I told him, I said, sir, the manager, I'm sorry, the director of the farm, managing director, I said, sir, you have a big problem here, and this is Marek's. He said, so what should he do? And I started thinking, I said, sir, maybe it would be good if you revaccinate. It just came to me as an idea. That was in 2006. The man, before I knew it, he just left. He didn't want to listen to what I was saying. He carried another set of carcass because they were dying. He took them to University of Ibadan, and he met one of our teachers, a professor, a pathologist, Professor Akpavie. When he met him, Professor Akpavie started opening the birds, and then he now told the manager, the director of that farm again, he said, sir, your birds are having Marek's disease. The man said, yes, somebody said something like that. There is one person in animal care, he said the same thing. But he told me that I should go and revaccinate. That was his argument. He didn't want that. So he now had to come and meet Professor Akpavie. So when Professor Akpavie heard that, Professor Akpavie looked at him and he said, who is that person? He said, he's one Dr. Dotun. Thank God, Professor Akpavie, we had met before, and he was my teacher, and he's still my teacher. Professor Akpavie just told him, he said, well, if it's Dotun, he's on the field. That statement, is on the field, was what encouraged that man to say, okay, let him try what this field man is saying. They got response vaccine, revaccinated these birds. But before these birds were revaccinated, another fellow had come to that farm, a veterinarian like us, who is even from another country. He said, no. Once you have Marek's, you need to wipe off these birds. You must kill them. You can't continue with this flock. 10,000 birds. And these birds were raised on a bank loan. When it was time for them to revaccinate, they got response. They revaccinated. About 2 months after that revaccination, because prior to that time, the birds were dying in large numbers, maybe like 10, 15 or like that in a day. And it was in the course of investigating this disease, I now saw one of the very strong effects of immunosuppression of Marek's disease. These birds had Aspergillus fumigatus circulating in their blood because of serious immunosuppression. So eventually the birds were revaccinated. 2 months later, when my colleague got there, he gave me a feedback which was interesting, shocking, and very encouraging to me. He said, doctor, do you know that those birds we told them to revaccinate are now doing very well? Mortality has stopped. Production has hit 90%. That was the first case I handled. Now, this graph I'm showing you is a reflection of what happened in a particular farm sometime ago in Shagam. And you can see the mortality pattern, weekly mortality pattern, which is in that blue line. that blue curve. At a point, mortality was 63, 35, went up to 70, 40 something. Then about that time when they were around 40 something, we revaccinated these birds. And then gradually the mortality began to decline. This is what can happen. But how to go about this, I'll be talking about that later. This is another interesting case. This one was somewhere in Ashikpa village near Shion in Ogun State. The orange colored curve is showing their weekly production. Despite the fact that they came down with Mareks, we had to intervene fast with getting the birds revaccinated. And gradually their production was also moving close to 90%. And the blue curve is showing the weekly mortality. The peak they had at the point was around 18 in a week, and it reduced to 8, which was close to average of 1 per day. That was in a flock of about 11,000 birds. That was before it finally declined. Now, they had another flock in a different pen, but this one was quite tough to control, very tough, very, very tough. As you can see from the curve, though their production was going up, it wasn't onto that of the other flock, but the mortality was also fluctuating. It rose even up to about 48 within a week. Though I did not collect the data of several weeks after these 30 weeks, which I stopped, but it later slowed down and stopped. But this was what happened. It was quite serious in the case of this farm. Now, one of the things I now did at 6 weeks post-vaccination was to check if I would be seeing a lot of tumors like I had seen earlier. If you look at the picture on the first picture of that black layer and take a close look at the liver, unlike what you will be seeing where you see massive tumors and all that on the liver as we had seen in pictures earlier shown, this one is showing what I called arrested tumors. They are not developing beyond what they had started to be. And then for some other reasons, the bird died. If this bird maybe had not died or maybe another infection, it would have continued to survive. That has been my observation. Then the second picture there is showing a spleen that is about to get enlarged. And we know how it can be, especially when it comes to tumors like Marek's. The size of the spleen can be up to 3, 4, more than 5 times the normal size once the tumor sets in. This particular one case was somewhere in Ibejuleki, and I couldn't collect all the data, but from what you can see, the average mortality did not go too crazy in his own case. I think the highest they had was about 22 mortalities in a week, and then it reduced gradually to 7 as at the time I stopped collecting the information. This was between week 37 and week 45 of age, but their production was still stable at this time. Now, there's no doubt about the fact that some cases can be very tough to manage, especially when complicated by lympholeucosis. Early detection, prompt action, and close monitoring are key to getting the best from the affected birds. With the current observations made on the field, we do recommend a 3rd vaccination against Marek disease before onset of lay in flocks where neoplastic changes were seen in few birds during postmortem examination. This has been seen where there is very high pressure of Marek disease virus. Let me share a case with us. I worked with a company, Animal Care Services Consult, and I remember when I was there, we used to get about 1.2 million day-old chicks every year. Out of these 1.2 million day-old chicks, some are kept on the farm after being raised. Some, I would say a large portion are sold out all over the country. Then in 2012, we started noticing some challenges. People were calling us, the birds you sold are having Mareks, this and that. Our doctor told us it's Mareks, we will not agree, this, and it became a serious issue. So I was asked by the management to start investigating. In the course of investigating, I found out that, yes, there was Marek's disease. Also, some had Marek's and leukosis. And those that had Marek's and leukosis were from a particular hatchery, 2 particular hatcheries, because we know that leukosis is usually vertically transmitted. So it became a serious issue. And about this time, one of my clients needed birds from animal care. And because I knew what I had been doing since 2006, I didn't bother. I just said, yes, book your 11,000 and collect. Now, I now discovered, after collecting 11,000, even from our own farm, for that my client, I started seeing this clinical signs and lesions. Immediately, I just told the farm manager, I said, my friend, this is what is happening. Please get these birds revaccinated against Marek's. That was what saved those birds. Going back to where the birds came out from, which was from the farm of the company where I was working for, they were now asking me, Dr. Dotun, what do you think we can do to prevent this thing? Because it will be a disgrace. You are selling point of lay, and those point of lay are now going to other farms and coming down with Marek's. I made a suggestion that, yes, I know they are vaccinated from the hatchery, and I know that you do repeat the vaccination by the 3rd week. What we are saying is that even the 3rd week vaccination cannot carry them through because of very high field virus pressure. When I said they should repeat another vaccination by the 13th week, the doctor in charge of the farm, who happened to be a foreigner, he said, no, we don't do this in India. I laughed within me, because this man did not know how we had been solving a lot of problems on the field. He was just limited to what he was seeing on his farm. So I now said, okay, I didn't say anything. And the owner of the farm, Dr. Latunde Agbato, of blessed memory, he also didn't say anything, because the doctor, who is a foreigner, had given his final verdict. I didn't say anything, and the problem now persisted until one day, the subordinate of that Indian man came to beg me, let's go back and meet Oga Patapata and plead with him to do this thing you are saying, because he has seen what I've been doing on the field. And this was done in the absence of this man. He went on leave. So we now went, and Oga said, okay, what you want to do, you can do it. And I sought an extra. I said, please, can we do something more? 13th week vaccination should be a special one. Give it double dose, so that 3 weeks before you sell off the birds, I'm sure they are well protected and they will go out. This was done in 2013. And by the grace of God, up till today, as I speak with you, this is 11 years. This is the method that saved this company from this devastating disease. If not, the point of lay business would have gone down the drain completely. 11 years, millions of birds have been revaccinated at their 13th week because of the nature of that environment. And they needed to get these birds protected before they go out to a different environment. Ever since, and I've been following it up, nobody from the farm has given me a feedback that, these birds are coming down with Marek's again. That was the end of Marek's disease, because we changed the pattern of vaccination. Now, other factors that make Marek's disease to be persistent in the environment could be poor vaccine quality, or the cold chain not being good, improper handling of the vaccine, especially the recipients, or improper administration. Thorough and prior systematic control of concurrent infections, like aspergillosis, Newcastle disease, pseudomonas, and all that. These will enhance better response to vaccination. Let me give a very good example of what happened somewhere at Odogbolu. We sold some birds to these people about that same year, 2012, and 30,000 point of lay were sold to them. And they noticed in the first batch of 15,000, the birds started coming down with Marek's. I also noticed they were having Newcastle disease and aspergillosis and colibacillosis, which was very disturbing. So what I had to do first and foremost was that I told them, look, can you allow me to handle this case? I know you bought point of lay from us. They were really angry with us because they felt that what we sold to them was a very bad quality. They did not understand that what we had seen was also disturbing to us, but I had been solving this problem on so many other farms, where I was able to have contact with the farmers. Eventually, they said they will not agree to any revaccination. Why? Because a particular senior prof from one of the Nigerian universities said, no, we will not agree, that it's not done. So I kept quiet. Eventually, when they saw that they were losing money every day, a typical businessman might rethink. They said, what that small boy in animal care said, maybe we should try it. They now called me and I told them what to do. Eventually, the day they were doing that revaccination, I was on ground. After I had run some other tests and done previous treatments to clear the problem of aspergillosis, we now focused on controlling the Newcastle disease, Marek's, and colibacillosis. So what I did was a 3-in-1 approach. The Marek diluent was extended with normal saline, and we added gentamicin to be given at 7.5 milligrams per kg body weight based on the sensitivity result to tackle the colibacillosis. Now, in that diluent, the Lasota and the 1,000 dose Marek's vaccines were dissolved, and it contained the gentamicin too. And they started injecting. I was watching everything. About 10 days later, I received a phone call from the farm manager. The farm manager said, he was saying something in Yoruba, that there is something that is making him shocked about what I asked them to do. I said, what is that? He said, doctor, can you imagine our production is going up? Mortality is coming down. The birds are stabilizing. I just laughed. That was all I did. Then the vet doctor who was working with him, who vehemently opposed the revaccination of that first set of 15,000 birds, now called me later and said, Dr. Dotun, is it possible to give Marek's double dose? I said, yes, it's very possible. That was the response I gave to him. And that was how we were able to completely solve that problem. It was after we solved this problem that even my own MD now began to believe in me. And they now said, what Dotun suggested, 13 weeks revaccination should be done henceforth. And that was done, and it's been done for millions of birds till date as I speak with you. Now, there's a particular case I encountered here in Jos, which I want to quickly share with us as I begin to round up. On 15th of March, 2021, the woman brought some birds to us. They were 16 weeks old, Isa Brown, and she got them from a particular hatchery in Ibadan. As at the time she brought them, she told us they were initially about 1,000, and a total of 130 birds had died. The pattern of mortality, as at the time she brought within the last 5 days, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 5. The postmortem lesions we observed were slightly emaciated carcasses, pallor of the comb, prominent keel bone, pericarditis, pale liver, spleen, thickened proventriculus with ulcers and petechial hemorrhages, pale and frothy lungs, pale kidneys, tumors on the heart, spleen, liver, proventriculus, and all that. So you can see the picture here. In fact, we published this in a particular journal, and the heart, as you can see on the second picture, was misshaped and enlarged. And this is the picture here, the normal heart on the right and the heart with the tumors on the left. So our differential diagnosis of Marek's disease, lympholeucosis, Newcastle disease, and colibacillosis. Tentatively, we were looking at Marek's disease, Newcastle disease, and colibacillosis.
Yeah, I think he's having issues. He's having issues.
Hello?
Yeah, wonderful presentation, but you're having issues. But I think he's sorted. Continue.
Yes, there was a phone call that came in. I've already cut it off anyway. I will soon round up, sir. So, based on the lab test, what we isolated was E. coli from the bacteriology aspect, and from the susceptibility test, it was most sensitive to gentamicin.
They won't allow you to rest. Yeah, it's Dr. Dotun has a lot of clients who are disturbing him. He has a lot of clients and are disturbing more, especially Saturdays. Yeah, Dr. Readjust your network. Change your network. Once you
Hello?
change it, continue, yes.
Okay, so we sent samples to MVRI, and via PCR, the presence of the virus was detected through the detection of the PP38 gene, or the virulent Marek's disease virus, as you can see, from the picture here. Now, the gel picture is showing clearly that sample 1 and 2 were positive, while 3, 4, and 5 were negative, because we sent a number of samples. But for it to even show positive actually confirms that. The electrophoresis was done, and the positive samples yielded 903 base pair fragments, which, as you can see here, very close to 1,000. So these are the ones that were positive, samples that were positive, And after confirming this, we decided to revaccinate. Like I had been doing over the years, I manage the bacterial infection. I manage if there are 2 viral infections like Newcastle and the Marek. I do combine this in the diluent, and this is how I manage the situation. So this is what I did. And then after injecting this, we told the woman to continue with doxygen, which is majorly doxycycline and gentamicin, orally through drinking water. And this was done along with multivitamins. And this table is showing what happened 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the revaccination, from day 1 to day 14. Now, this was 2 weeks before in terms of when you're talking about the mortality, 2 weeks before. 4, 3, 5, like that. It peaked at 7 in a day, and the total they had in the 2 weeks before the vaccination was 60. Then 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's still being disturbed. His network is being harassed. Dotun is a harassed personality by clients, by farmers, and that is what is bringing all these hiccups. Dotun, please rework your, move to another network. This is what you do when you use your phone for data.
Yeah.
Yeah. Continue.
Maybe I'll need to get either another this thing to be using for that. Anyway,
a broadband,
2 weeks,
yes.
2 weeks post-vaccination, as you can see from that table, the mortality reduced significantly compared to 2 weeks before vaccination. Now, this is just a breakdown of what we have been seeing in the last 1 year at the veterinary teaching hospital, the Poultry and Fish Clinic. Between October 2023, we found out that most of the cases were in layers, and pullets. In October 2023, there were only 3 cases of Marek's disease out of a total of 176. By November, only 5 cases of Marek's disease in a total of 172 cases. And by December, only 3 cases out of 169 cases. However, January this year, we had a high number, about 10 cases of Marek's, and this was out of 189 cases. In February, it was 5 out of 197 cases. In March, it was also high. Out of 267 cases in that month, 9 were diagnosed of having Marek's disease, even up to births of 50-something weeks old. In April, May, and June, June had the highest among these, and the total number of cases are also shown on the last column. And July this year was when we had the highest number of cases of Marek's. Out of 253 cases, 14 were cases of Marek's disease. In all, within the last 1 year, out of 2,566 cases, 68 were Marek's disease cases, and as shown in this summary. Out of these 68, 67 were involving layers and pullets, and then only one was in broilers. So I would like to stop at this level. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Yusha Baraya, please take it up from here, and then let's have an interesting conversation on this topic. Unmute yourself.
Comment. Sorry.
Continue, Prof. You muted yourself again. Unmute her. Continue.
Okay, I can continue now.
Yes.
Yeah, for a very wonderful presentation from his field experience as well as research, knowing fully that Marek continue to be a economically important disease in poultry due to its neoplastic nature, as well as immunosuppression, because the virus can attack the T cells as well as lymphocytes. So we're grateful for this presentation and the strategy in the management aspects. It's not everybody that is aware of that knows that this thing needs to be repeated over time to minimize the mortality as well as the morbidity in MRS. So we hope with this, it often does of more collaboration when we have cases along this area. That is it. So I don't know the participants, if there's anybody that has any comment, questions to interact with the presenter, Dr. Dotun Oladele. All right.
Yeah, if there's anybody that's
anybody.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hello.
Yeah, you can talk.
Dr. Dotun, well done for the presentation.
Kwajafa is talking. I know.
And Ochendo, well done for organizing this.
Thank you.
My worry is this academic thing that is all over the places need to be checked. The issue of gown to town and field experience, I'm not insulting anybody, but if a younger person is bringing something new and is getting results, and all of us believe diseases are peculiar to environments, we should accept it. We are not in UK, in US, for us to continue to copy what they are doing, because diseases do not respect situations. They take advantage of all situations, and we are vulnerable, and this is where we find ourselves. So I don't know what is going to happen, but the academic people need to adjust. And I am happy Dotun is on the field. I don't know what attracted him to academics, maybe the title of the professor, but I see him building more people outside there than the academics. Because this is somebody I know for more than 30 years, right from school, and I know how he was brought up. So these are things that I think we need to change our orientation to make this profession grow. Otherwise, if we continue to stick to those literature and journal, whatever, the academic thing, we are not going to get anywhere. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Doctor,
you.
look. Yeah, Doctor,
Thank
look
you.
at the chat box. There's a question for Lumnes, but then
Yeah, there is question. Yeah. So the is Dr. Lumenze.
Yeah.
He's asking good presentation, but I don't understand the area where he mixed gentamicin, Marek's vaccine, and Newcastle vaccine to jab birds at first infection. What is the rationale behind the idea of mixing the antibiotics as well as these vaccines?
Okay. Let me respond to that question. Thank you very much, sir. This question has always come up, and I always enjoy answering the question by asking veterinarians this same question. That can they remember what we were taught in virology? In virus culture, you use antibiotic and antifungals. Am I right, Prof?
Yes, that is the what
so
is on
if for us to culture like the ND virus, which I have done before, you are culturing it, you will need antibiotic when you are inoculating into that egg. Whatever you are going to inoculate will contain some portion of antibiotic and antifungal, as the case may be.
Yes.
It means the antibiotic is not going to have any effect on the virus because it is not antiviral. So based on that, we should not even be too bothered. I also know some vaccine manufacturers that will put on their label, I mean, on the leaflets that come with the pack of vaccines, that as part of what they have used in helping to preserve the quality of the vaccine, that they also use some quantity of gentamicin. I have read that before. Why?
Okay.
Just to ensure there is no bacterial proliferation or whatever in whatever they are preparing. So that helps to control any bacterial growth in what they use in preparing the vaccine virus. So the rationale behind the gentamicin is first based on the sensitivity test that there was a bacterial infection that the organism was highly susceptible to, let's say, gentamicin. In some cases, I use streptomycin, depending on the susceptibility. And where it's not susceptible to any of the common injectables, I only give the Marek's vaccine as it is. Now, in situations where you have both Marek's vaccine, I mean, Marek's disease and Newcastle disease. I remember a case sometime in Ijebu, the farm, there were 5 diseases occurring in a flock of about 12,000 birds. There was lice infestation, there was salmonellosis, there was mycoplasmosis, there was Newcastle disease and Marek's disease. Now, in managing this problem, I did a similar thing to what I mentioned earlier, the Genta in the Marek, with the Marek's vaccine and the Lasota. I used the Marek's diluent and extended it with normal saline and combined with the gentamicin based on the calculation per 1,000 layers, of which I would need 150 mils of the Genta 10% plus 200 mils of the Marek diluent as it comes, and 150 mil of normal saline to extend it. And into this mixture, the 1,000 dose Marek's vaccine, HVT, and the 1,000 dose Lasota were reconstituted, mixed well, and given at 0.5 mil IM per bud. And this works beautifully. From my experience, if the mortality is high because of the Newcastle and the salmonellosis, it will drop significantly, while it will still linger because of the Marek's. Maybe if they used to have like 25 mortality, it can drop to like 5 or 3, because salmonellosis itself can be very, very nasty. Newcastle can be very, very serious. And for Newcastle disease, revaccinating in the midst of the outbreak is a function of several things. I may not have the time to mention that here, to go into details. But you see, like Dr. Kwajafa said, that we need to think out of the box, if I will go by what he's trying to say. We need to, as veterinarians, begin to look at how we can solve our problems in our own local way and get the best out of it. Recently, in just September, one of my clients in the Southwest had classical avian influenza. When the video was sent to me and I saw the mortality pattern and I saw everything, I had to tell them that, look, quickly go and get a product. Use it in their drinking water. It's called Virox S. You know, it is potassium monopersulfate, very strong. We use it as disinfectant, you know, but it can be used also as a systemic antiviral preparation. Before this farmer started treatment, mortality had hit 101 layers. By the time they started using this product, the mortality within a space of 10 days had reduced and they didn't have more than 60 and it came to 0. It was after this, I now told them to go and do what in Nigeria they say we should not be doing, revaccinate against avian influenza. And that was what was done. And as I speak with you, those birds are doing very fine and laying beautifully. If we are to follow what we know, we will say slaughter all those birds. Imagine slaughtering 12,500 birds. What will happen to that farmer? He will land immediately in the hospital out of depression and fear and hypertension. So as much as possible, my own plea with my colleagues is that we should start rethinking some of our processes of handling some of these conditions so that the industry can be better. And then even we as veterinarians, because when people are in business and they're into their business, whether you as a veterinarian into poultry or another farmer into the business, everybody will be happy. So that's my view. So Dr. Lumenze, gentamicin with the Mareks and the Lasota is not anything strange. So it is something that has helped so many farms. If you want more, I think you have my number. We can discuss more and I will explain further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So any...
Yeah, Professor Ikechukwu. Professor Ikechukwu.
Yeah, Prof. Ebokwe, our teacher. Welcome, but sir.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Sir, can we see your picture, sir? Unless you have some network problem.
There's a network issue around Maiduguri here.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome, and I hope you appreciate the situation.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, Dr. Oladele Dotun is a remarkable person, diligent and very forthright. I've known him for a long time. He was my student. I used to call him Demolition.
Demolition.
Yeah, everything is serious that he demolishes any challenge in front of him. No, I appreciate what you are doing. I still have to do a lot of things with you, although I'm finding it difficult to get the time to do those things right now. I noticed that in your presentations, you have not given a perspective to the biosecurity levels and the level of interaction of biosecurity in the whole scenario. Because it's a challenging thing when we see multiple infections, multiple outbreaks in a farm. That means our farmers are not taking biosecurity very seriously. And it's very, very expensive thing to do. It costs a lot because these infections don't just come from anywhere. They don't just appear. They come from somewhere. And one of the things that is very important is to ensure that the infections don't get into the farm in the first place.
Yes.
I think one of the things we should do is to encourage farmers to invest more on biosecurity, do a strategic planning for biosecurity in their farm outlay, and in the way they plan their farms to be sure that such things are adequately taken care of. in the long run, it becomes a lot much more cost effective. So I can imagine in a farm, three, 4, 5 diseases occurring at the same time. That is,
yes.
it's a very sad thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm looking at now is that we still need to have a national database of the outlook of disease occurrences, disease in our poultry production systems, so that we can even plan towards what we can be doing to control them. And people like BBC's company will now know what are animal health needs, so that they can provide resources in areas that are important. It's like also, it's becoming important that we plan ahead for clinical trials. There are a number of things that you brought up here concerning approaches to non-conventional approaches to handling diseases.
Yeah.
I know you may have reported them in some case reports. I would also like to read them eventually. But it's good to also endorse some of them, systematically advocate for them among our farmers, and see how they buy into it. And in the long run, we want a profitable production system.
Yes.
And a production system without an effective disease control is not going to work, because once you lose your flock, more than 5% loss of your production flock will reasonably decrease the profit margin.
Yes.
So I think you are doing a good job, and I congratulate you and hope that you continue persisting. So get more people into your fold, so that we'll work together, a network, a national network, to ensure that we can do a very good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Prof.
you. Thank you, my senior.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My senior in the university, Professor Iboko, was in final year when I was in second year. And he was really mentored a lot of us, actually.
Hello, sir.
Came down to our level and was able to coach us more, especially in physiology and biochemistry. But anyway,
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hello.
And let me share some information which I know Dotun will confirm.
Okay.
Most of the farms he cited, especially where he works, I was there sometime in 2007. I went back later. I know the biosecurity there is something intact. Unfortunately, what I expect Dotun to highlight, that some of us are not even there and don't get there, is the contribution of the wildlife in respect of the specific diseases he has mentioned, with emphasis to Marek's lymphoid leukosis. Those birds crossing our farms, what do we do with them? They have droppings along the line.
Yeah.
And that droppings may drop on our farms and may cause a problem. So regardless of the biosecurity you have, if you are not having an enclosed housing for your birds, you still stand a risk, because the birds in the air, how do you stop them from moving or crossing your farms? These are some areas that are very key for Dr. Dotun to elaborate, so that we will get to know where those problems are coming, apart from the vertical and horizontal transmission of some of these diseases.
Yeah, I think Kwajafa, you have a point now. But I have seen some farms where birds enter inside the pen. Shows that the pen are not bird proof.
Yeah.
You can deal with that from that. Then with that, you have narrowed the chances. Because most of these things are falling on the roof. And as God will have it, most of these viruses, many of them are envelope virus, which makes it better for us, because envelope viruses are more delicate than naked viruses. But Doctor, you tried to deal with the differential diagnosis between Marek's, and you need to, rationalize them and bring them out, brew and distill them out.
Okay.
Between ALJ, avian leukocytes J, which
like generally from what
yes,
we know.
a very tight, very tight differential diagnosis in some areas, actually. Yeah. So sometimes you can miscalculate, but you said something here in ALJ, that's avian leukocytes J. You said something about beaded mesentery.
Oh, yes. Even if you check the text, you will see it.
Yes, beaded mesentery.
Mesentery,
That's
especially
nodules on the mesentery.
On the mesentery.
On the mesentery.
And it becomes
so a very
thickened.
good point to note.
Yes.
Then you look at other eye involvement, skin involvement, neurological involvement. These are
muscles.
These are quarantined
the proventricular tumor.
Yeah.
Tends more towards the Marek's. It's usually seen in the Marek's, even from what I've seen in text and on the field.
But so, I think the cells are different. The lymphoproliferative cells are different.
Yes.
Yeah. I think they are different. They are not same. Though I think
usually at the histological level, there are differences that will be seen.
Yes.
Also, yes. But most times we try to make things fast. We just go for PCR, sharp.
No, but you see, in the process of going to PCR,
but the histology is very, very vital.
Yes, please. In terms of going to PCR, because you want to nail the diagnosis, you need to have a systematic approach to PCR. You don't jump guns. You don't jump guns, please. It's very, very dangerous, jumping guns. Because the PCR, the other systemic checks will give you the pathogenesis. And then you spoke about the what do I say, the cycle, the cycle of the disease, how it comes to this level. If you don't go histologically one stage to the another, you might not really be able to pinpoint what you are going to deal with. You might try to deal with the previous stages. Meanwhile, it has jumped those stages. So it's very important to holistically get these things, and that's why the research is good. When Kwajafa talked about Igbo is trying to raise his hand, he wants to speak. Please, Igbo, do you have anything to say? Or is it the former hand you raised?
Not the former hand, is a new one.
The new one, okay.
Yes, I think Dotun's PCR is very, very vital. Even in places where your necropsy is not very good, or even if your necropsy is very good, you need to be able to confirm the etiological diagnosis. PCR is a standard. It's a standard thing.
No, Prof. I'm talking about PCR is good. But to jump it, I'm talking about jumping other stages in diagnosis.
Other diagnostic tools.
Yes. We need to have them, because some of those tools can put us in a better control of the situation. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. No, what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, if it's in VOM or if it's in JOS, and the farm has an outbreak somewhere in the south, say like Lagos or Osun, a local person opens the bed and shows him a photograph. He's suspecting PCR, Marek's, and he asks them to collect samples. It doesn't have to be there to do collect samples, put it in a cold chain, and fly it to him in JOS. He collects it, takes it to VOM, and they confirm it. Once they confirm it, that's it's incontrovertible.
Yeah, so it's incontrovertible, Prof. But the thing is that the ones you jumped might give you some clues on how to handle it tomorrow. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it's just to develop a cascade.
He's talking about having other diagnostic tools also need to be
so that it will put you on guard.
Yeah, cytology,
Hello, hello.
histopathology.
Uh,
Yeah.
hello, accepted. Histology is good. But when we look at the time frame that you are going to get your result in between PCR and histology and the fate of the
But
farmer.
Jaffa, you're not getting us right. We say you don't do those jump starts. No, we're not saying you don't do them. You do them in accord with the others. That's what we are saying. We say don't go fast check. As you're doing fast check, be doing slower checks.
Yeah,
Which might give you some information.
The specimen may be there, may still be there. So you can take time to look at the histology.
Yeah. It's simple. We're not saying don't
it add value.
What are we doing?
It add value to the diagnosis as well as this experience differences you observe, and the different types of cells are usually manifested at the histology level. Yeah.
Maybe what are we doing, sir? Hello, what are we doing?
Yes.
Like the one that I said we published, I will share it with us. Maybe I will send it to the platform for those of us who are interested in taking a look at it. You'll find out that the basic stages were all passed through, including the histology. Apart from the PCR, the histology was done. And it's just that because of time, I would have added those slides showing all those ones too, but I will share it with us so that we can all take a look at it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
ALJ is in this country, but one thing is that ALJ is mostly vertically transmitted.
Yeah.
Yes, and some hatcheries are really culprit in disseminating ALJ. That's avian leukosis J. That are serious culprits. And then, like Dotun said, Marek's disease is horizontal. It's not vertical. That means if there's a problem, it's not from hatchery. It's from the farms.
Yeah.
So the farm should look in depth into just like Professor Ibokwe said, serious in depth into biosecurity. Extremely. It's very, very important in all those things we are saying. Okay. ALJ is strictly from vertical. Marek's from horizontal. So that means you are having a serious biosecurity hiccups at various value chain in chicken production.
Sure.
Right from the parent stock down to the commercial, where they pick from parent stock where they pick the ALJ to commercial where they put Marek's. And strictly, mostly 80% of cases, salmonellosis are from the hatchery. In 80% of the cases.
Yeah.
Yes, mostly are from the hatchery. So we really need to look at the disease control picture in this country. We are living a lot of points. I don't see reason why a veterinarian or 2 or 3 veterinarians cannot be statutorily responsible in handling one hatchery in terms of discovering disease and stopping them from releasing those birds into the commercial area. So the animal diseases controlling version of our practice should be up and doing.
Dr.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. You were saying something about leukosis.
Yes.
In fact, I had an encounter that shocked me some years ago. A particular hatchery approached me. Then I was still in animal care, and that they wanted to buy hatchable eggs, eggs that will hatch to produce parent stock for them. That they were importing those eggs from a particular country. They actually imported the eggs, and those eggs were actually being sold to them by some people who are foreigners living in Nigeria and running their business in Nigeria. And I now advised them. I said, look, why not screen for the ALV antigen, the P27 antigen? We can use the ELISA. We will check from the allantoic fluid. Once the eggs, embryonated chicken eggs, about 9 days old, randomly select the eggs from the setter, bring them to us, let us check. If it is having the leukosis virus, we'll let you know. If it's not there, we'll let you know. They eventually agreed, sir. They brought a significant portion were positive, others were negative. And now advise them not to buy those parent stock hatchable eggs from them. You know, they didn't listen to what I was saying.
Oh.
They were convinced by those foreigners that there is no lab in Nigeria that can ever do such a thing. So, but all my results were ready. I sent everything to them. We used antigen capture ELISA, sent everything. They didn't listen. They bought those things, I think, on credit. Raised the bots. A few months later, sir, I started receiving phone calls. Birds are dying. Not only the parent stock, the birds that were produced, the day-old chicks that were produced and sent to various places. That hatchery is somewhere in the southwest. The effect of their negligence, I saw it somewhere in Anambra, where people were losing birds heavily because of the avian leukosis problem, which we had earlier detected and warned them. At the end of the day, you know what happened? I was told to come and defend them in the court because they refused to pay the foreigners the balance of the money they were owing them. They said a lot of damage had occurred, so they couldn't do anything. It was the results I had given them much earlier that they used in the court before the judge to prove that what was sold to them was of bad quality. So, like you said, veterinarians, we should be able to take their stand. We should be able to do a lot of quality control checks. If this is not in place, honestly, we will just be wasting our time in this country. Because even as I speak to you, a lot of diseases are being imported into Nigeria.
No, the issue here is that along the line, they highly politicized. Unfortunately, they gagged the Federal Livestock Department then. And then they were given from presidency. Because things that are supposed to be done were not done. From presidency, they were giving instructions to Federal Livestock Department on who to give license to import parent stock. It went to that political arena. And it was when it was getting to that political arena that we have what do you call it? Avian influenza struck us. So we should remove, once the technocrats could not do what they're supposed to do, the politicians once the bureaucrats and the technocrats refuse to do what they're supposed to do, the politicians will take over.
Yeah.
Because the politicians think everything is content, anything is money, anything is interest. But it is the bureaucrats that will put them on check. Whoever it is, this is this, this is this. But you know, in this country, they have politicized the civil service. And that's why we are getting all these things. But with these animal diseases, if we put our acts together, the Animal Diseases Act, as amended in 2022, gave us enough bite to checkmate all those things, give employment to our colleagues who will be employed to supervise the activities and be a link between those hatcheries and our bureaucrats and the profession.
Yes.
You know, like the pharmacist, you can't open a pharmacy shop without employing a pharmacist from the council. It's not possible. So let us start to put certain things in place, or we will have an implosion right here in the country. You are not saying a farm has 5 diseases.
Yes.
Some of them from the hatchery.
Yes.
Because LLJ can't pick it, it's from the hatchery, from the Korea Atlantoid space. Is it not true? That's why you are talking about it. From Korea Atlantoid space. Then they start moving to the beds. And then start moving from one generation to the other. So if that one is from the hatchery, and as vertically transmitted, not from the hatchery as horizontal, as here, that means there's a problem in the country in disease control. And we all know the infection needles, where we can go and then stop up this infection. If you stop parents stop-born diseases, I think you have done 60% in controlling diseases.
Yes.
Yes, you've done a lot. But you see, when some of us will be shouting, I've had them. So anyway, thank God they've been trying to involve people like me in some of their decisions now. I've sat in many committees, and I'm not the one that will go and collect per diem and go home. I will shout. Some times they were saying, don't bring this madman here. Because some of them don't want the truth. And people like us, we don't owe anybody. Nobody owes us. All we owe is our profession.
Yes.
And mostly our profession to get things done so that many people will be employed. We cannot be scavenging with unemployment. Meanwhile, the hands are there and we are needed. But the only thing is to create the dynamics for these hands to be involved. But I thank the Vakuri, honestly. He has been very, I've sat in many committees this time around, and we're able to deal with certain issues. Even when the Animal Diseases Act, they all sat, they said they did validation. At the end of the day, when it comes to mobilization, I was almost at the forefront with Alberto in terms of mobilize funds to be able to deal with this issue. But that's not even the case why we're here. Let us have an introspection and get things sorted out. And not who is talking more than the other. And I've seen a situation where I was in front of a minister. If I was talking and you can see them shaking because they don't want to say the truth. They want, most of these politicians, they want to hear what you say, they want you to talk what they want to hear. And things are going bad. Ishikera from Omudike is trying to talk so that we can round up. Shikera, please unmute yourself and you can talk.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
And thank you, Dr. Dotun. I'm highly excited to be here. And thank you for the wealth of knowledge. Indeed, I envy your students because most of what you've told us here, especially with your own pattern of vaccination against Marek's disease, is not what we were told in the university. And thank God you are now in the university where you're teaching. I believe you're now teaching your students differently from what we were taught. So that's the good thing about having people like you with vast knowledge in the field coming back to lecture is very important, sir, even if it's on part-time basis. Because in the university, we produce those that will eventually become veterinarians. So people from the field where diseases don't read books, in quotes, coming back to teach the current trend is very important. And I commend you, sir, for choosing to come back to the university. So my only question is, this idea of vaccinating at 13th week or at point of lay, I understand it because of the endemicity of the disease in our environment. But do you advise it to be done in any farm in the country? Has there been any sort of maybe epidemiological survey to show areas where it should be done or areas where it may not be necessary? Do you advise that as long as it is in Nigeria here, in any farm, aside the day-old vaccination and then these 3 weeks, that the one of 13th week should also be done?
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. To respond to that question, actually the 13th week was very specific for Funtuna farms where we're raising hundreds of thousands of point of lay. And in such an environment, you will agree with me that the pressure of the field virus will be very, very strong. Because prior to my suggesting the 13th week vaccination, I know we used to give at the 3rd week. So if at the 3rd week, despite the 3rd week and the one at the hatchery, they were still coming down with neoplastic changes after, 16 weeks. It dawned on me that the pressure of the field virus will be very, very strong. I think this is one of the areas that we as veterinarians need to be looking at in terms of the effect of specific environmental feed virus pressure on the disease pattern. It was because of what I saw in our own environment, I had to change the vaccination program. And that was what saved the situation. It's 11 years running now. They are still using that program, and nobody ever since, millions of birds have been sold out ever since 2013. Nobody has come back to report any case of Mareks again. Now, you do not have to do this everywhere, because this farm I'm talking about is over 45 years or so in operation. There are a lot of farms that are not up to that number of years in operation. So the feed virus pressure is likely to be low. In that case, it was that of Mareks, and I had to change the vaccination program because what I was doing on the field, on the birds that left the place, was to revaccinate. And I thought of it that why wait until the birds reach 19 weeks when they start showing classical lesions? Why not get this thing done 3 weeks before they leave? Understanding that.
Let me halt you a bit. I'm sorry to say this.
No problem, sir.
Any disease that is highly endemic, you should follow that way. You said something when you talk about the epidemiological significance, factors. You spoke about dander. You spoke about feathers. These things can be carried in the wind.
Yes, yes.
And you spoke about that on the feather, the root of the feather, that these things can survive for a long time.
Yes.
So if you are saying that, what are the neighboring farms up to as a result of this? Yeah. What you are trying to say is that that farm is endemic because it has stayed for 45 years or something like that. Now, how about other farm that is around that is subjected to that pressure? I think it's just like a human being. If you are beaten by a dog, most times you are told to go and vaccinate against rabies because of the fatality, the high fatality of rabies. Is it not true?
Yes.
Don't be thinking whether you have it or not. Because once it strikes, you are dead. So what I'm saying is that instead of waiting when the pressure or no pressure, go along this direction. But the question I want to ask you, sir, there are 3 strains of Mareks. CVI 988. That's what we call response. We have the SB1. And then we have the herpes virus of Turkey. Which one do you suggest? Response at the day old, HVT at 3 weeks, at SB1 at 13 weeks.
Now,
or response, or HVT, or SB1. But let us really get, though that in most cases they combine response with HVT. Not all. In all cases. Anyway, because we are vaccine merchants, we know that some of so please
let me quickly say this, sir. The very first case I handled, we used response in 2006, and we got excellent results. However, more than 99% of every other case I handled is been HVT odd. Why? It's easy to get and it's cheaper. Its handling is easier compared with that of response.
Because like
and interestingly, I've been getting fantastic results with it. So for ease of administration, we may look more towards the HVT, but at the hatchery level, the response could be combined maybe with the HVT or the SB1, as the case may be. So if you are using maybe a bivalent kind of Mareks vaccine at the hatchery level, I think it makes a lot of sense. At least that is the starting point. Then subsequent ones could be like that of the HVT.
Okay. You've done a lot. I mean, HVT, just like you said, it's easy to manage, it's easy to handle.
Yes.
If you can get the right one. What's the Iboko is raising his hands again? What takes you out from not doing it and repeating it and be on the safe side, or not doing it and be on the safe side and not doing it and be on the safe side. Even if you are going to be a safe side, important thing is to do it and get away with it.
Yes.
So, you know, when you have diseases, empirical morbidity and mortality is high.
Yes.
You better watch it and be careful.
Yes.
And then you are stopping the next generation. You know, in our country, in some growing country and a developing country, vaccination is part of biosecurity.
Yes.
While in advanced countries, vaccination is not part of biosecurity. We know why vaccination is part of biosecurity. Just like Kwajafa is saying, we are not using closed system.
Yes.
That means we are exposed. Our beds are exposed. Anyway, Prof. Ibokwe, please. Oh, you're welcome, sir. Any day.
I just want to say it's good that this webinar is taking place just before the conference.
Sir, please be audible. Be audible, sir.
You are here. The webinar is taking place just before the conference, and you people are going to be in the conference.
Yes.
Are you now? There is something. This thing that we are doing now is something that is happening on the conference floor. I don't know how this can come into discussion at the level of the conference. I noticed that NVMA, we don't have working groups. We don't have discussion groups because there are some vital issues around animal health that should have discussion groups, expert groups working on them, and evolving policies that can be implementable to forestall problems that are emerging, or even control the ones that have already stabilized in the system. So because everything requires a study of it, understanding the problem, having a clear view of what is there on the ground, so that we can have strategic control measures or preventative methods in the farm. So
thank you for raising this point. Honestly, I think the
conference floor.
Yeah. No, you see, let me tell you, our conferences are loaded. I have presided over 2 conferences, 2010 and 2011. They are so loaded that to bring in 1 or 2 things might be extremely difficult. All I think, because at this stage in our life, professional patterning on how to pattern our profession tomorrow, there are a lot of terrible incident on us. And if we are going to prive into 1 or 2, 3 things, we might get into, losing out in some vital areas. I think the chief veterinary officer of the Federation and the Veterinary Council of Nigeria should sit down and talk. So that means they should sit down and talk. Unfortunately, along the line, we have the CVON and president of the council fighting on down. To me, the law looks like irrelevancies, to be frank with you. That's not why they are sent there. That's not why we send them there. That our problem is that our institutions must. And then the MVMA ESCO should be a strong arbiter. What I found out when the CVO and the VCM president was at loggerhead, unfortunately, MVMA was neither here nor there. That's why people look at me and said, why do you say this? As if to say they want to close my mouth. And let me say it, as far as I continue to see these things, I will erupt them. I'm not erupting them for personal attacks or to elicit personal grievances or recriminations. I am bringing them up so that we can forestall a lot of disadvantages on our part. All these things we have said and will continue to say, we are bringing up a lot of diseases and control and stuff like that in this platform. And this platform, and then Savan is doing a lot. Yes, 2 days ago, I attended a seminar, webinar on Arovin, Association of Ruminant Veterinarians in Nigeria. You know, if we pattern ourselves and see our compartments because of areas of peculiarities, and then each one will bring up. Before you know it, will form a mosaic, a formation that can advance our practice. But it lies between Chief Veterinary Officer, that's Animal Diseases Control under Animal Diseases Act, as amended in 2022, and then the Vet Soldiers Act of 1987, amended in slightly amended in 2016. When we bring all these our company, we will sit down, bring our expert hub, let's discuss. So that once we just start discussing all these gossips flying left and right, forward and backward, we will not be there. And let me say this: a scratch on anybody in this country is a scratch for everybody, anywhere. So it is either we see our common enemy and unite. And when we are playing students' union politics, Iboko had left Prof has left UNM when we play real students union politics. One of the greatest strategies in any human adventure is common enemy unites. You cannot conflagrate in front of common enemies. They will wreck you. Every profession around us wants to take our job. That one, we have seen it. We are in court here, we are caught here, we are here. In that kind of peculiarity or peculiar stance, we don't need to conflagrate. I think on this one, we should be rounding up. If there's anybody that has something to say. Yeah. Yunusa, yeah, you shall, sorry, I'm calling you Yunusa.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. If there's anything, you can round up as our moderator.
Thank you all for the contribution, especially for the presentation from Dr. Oladele. It's actually an impactful one. And this year call to more collaboration and networking is highly encouraging, actually. That is the only way we can move forward as an association and also professional colleagues. And also the academic cycle, whatever somebody found in practice should not be neglected, should also be considered for further verification so that we can all benefit our subject and humanity as well. And also thank the Bluebird for the opportunity to take part in this presentation, and hopefully I'll maintain to participate subsequent presentation, God's willing. And hoping to meet the Dr. Dotun in Jos. We are planning to come over for the conference, God's willing. Yes.
You have to go through. You have to go through the toll gate. Where I'm manning the toll gate before.
I will be on ground. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, we can
hear you.
Hello.
He's hearing you.
I will be on ground on the first day because I need to travel for a very important reason to Akure. But on that first day, I will be on ground by God's grace.
Which first day? Is it an arrival day or
the arrival day? The arrival
or
day.
Opening ceremony day?
Yes. No, the opening ceremony is going to be on Tuesday, I think.
Are you going to be here?
That's when I'll be traveling. But on Monday, doing registration and all that, the moment I leave the clinic, I will move to the venue to be with some friends and register and collect my bag.
Okay, we'll catch up, inshallah.
We'll catch up. Please.
I will send a soft copy of that publication I talked about. I will send it to the WhatsApp group now.
All right.
In the next few
days. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Busha, but we are in our Bluebird platform now, I guess.
I have not seen an update, but you can check and confirm.
I'll check. Anyway, I'll add you. No problem. Right. It's a we have 7 former vice chancellors on that platform.
So it's an opportunity to
Yes,
join you.
opportunity, and we have people
Yeah.
on various
Area of
divergent area,
area.
gender, you know, geography, name it, all coming to brainstorm. And the binding wire is veterinary medicine. And please, we have I think I'll put our YouTube channel. Help us to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that will help us really to beef up our content. We want now our content valuation and content value, content addition. So that if we put, the only way YouTube will know that our content is high is the number of subscription we get. So those on YouTube, we have 7 people on YouTube right now watching us. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I'm going to share this video to all the platforms. So, and then you will share it again and reshare it. So let this go viral. And then as you are resharing it, be telling them to be clicking on subscribe button. And that's how the algorithm, we'll get we'll get to our chemic stage, increase the viewing, the watching hours, and then the subscription helps contents to flow and grow. For everybody, we thank you. I saw Professor Kudi here. I think he has gone. Is he still here? He has gone. Professor Kudi was here. I don't know whether Professor Usmanu of Utman Danfodio is here. Professor Ibokwe. Thank you very much. Those watching us from Edinburgh, Dr. Nelson, thank you. Those watching us all the places, God bless you all. Maybe we'll revalidate ourselves and reconcile ourselves 2 weeks' time. Next week, we're the mood of the conference. We won't have any lecture. But in 2 weeks' time, Lufunke will give us lecture on babesiosis for those of us in the canine industry. Oh, well, thank you. And it will be moderated by, she's a clinician in babesiosis. She's going to give us lecture on equine, bovine, and canine babesiosis, and then control, clinical science, management. We are trying to, have a format on how to handle some of our baseline diseases all over the places. She will be here with us. And then she's going to, see the way, she's going to be moderated by an entomologist. So that she would, as she is measuring the vectors in passing, like he did today, moderators, her moderator, which will be giving us the vectors of the disease, and then what we're going to see and how we're going to check them. So on this platform, I think we've done well. Those on YouTube, please, I plead with you, subscribe to our button. Those that are here, please go to our YouTube channel, Bluebird TV, or when we send you this video, as you're watching it, be subscribing. And then find time to watch there are a lot of videos there, a lot.